Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1005A. And today's date is June 23rd, 2016. And the title of the episode is The Economy is Fine If You Believe in the Illusion. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, today we see the market has been pushed up. We know we're on the eve of the BREXIT. Gold has been suppressed once again. They brought it down. And when we've been looking at all the economic indicators, we realize and we understand that this is one gigantic illusion. I mean, if you believe in it, yeah, you'll be fine for the short run. You'll be fine for this time period. But when the illusion ends, that's where the problem comes in. The illusion ended in 2008. Most of the people were caught off guard. The illusion here is going to end. You can only manipulate, cheat, lie, fake for so long. And eventually, it does catch up with you. Because you have to remember the strength of this economy. It is the people. It's not the central bank creating currency out of thin air. It's not the central bank blowing up bubbles. It's not the central bank giving free money to banks and hedge funds and investment companies to pump up the market, to purchase thousands and thousands of pieces of real estate. The people, they're the driver of the economy. If the people are sitting on the sidelines, if the people don't have the jobs, if the people are being laid off, if the people don't have discretionary funds, disposable income to go out and purchase goods, the economy is not going to thrive. Because if they're not purchasing goods, retail is going to contract. If retail contracts, there's no reason to manufacture. There's no reason to manufacture. The economy continually shrinks. And this is what we're seeing right now. But of course, the U.S. government central bankers, they're doing whatever they possibly can to manipulate the situation. We see, for instance, the Department of Labor. They're saying that the initial jobless claims, they have plunged to a 42-year low. Now, what's very interesting about this is that the Fed, they have their indicator, which is the Fed Labor Market Condition Index. And when you look at the Department of Labor and the Fed Labor Market Condition Index, they're heading in two different directions. Now, the U.S. government is telling us that we're at 42-year lows, even though we know from Challenger Gray and Christmas, corporations are continually laying off, retail is continually laying off, and we know they manipulate these numbers and they massage the numbers to make it look really good, and all those people that might be applying for initial claims, they're dropping off, they're not looking for a job, we're not even going to look at them, and we'll just manipulate this number lower and lower to make it jive with the 4.7% unemployment number. On the other hand, we have the Fed Labor Market Index, Market Condition Index, and this is moving in the opposite direction. And we're looking at the situation where things are starting not to make sense anymore. I mean, even if we look at the Chicago Fed National Activity Index, which plunged to a negative 0.51. Now, this is the worst level since January 2014. By the way, the Chicago Fed National Activity Index, this is a monthly index designed to gauge overall economic activity and related inflationary pressure. And we see right now that under the surface, things are ugly, with only 28 of the 85 monthly individual indicators made positive contributions, while 57 indicators deteriorated. So this doesn't bode well right now. And we're starting to see a lot of information, economic indicators that conflict with each other. Yesterday, we had the existing home sales where they're saying they've increased, they surged. And today we have the new home sales, which have plunged the most in 8 months. Very interesting. We're seeing the median price of homes tumbling to the lowest since June of 2015. And what we're seeing right now is that the National Association of Realtors and the FHA, they're going in opposite direction and reporting the housing prices. Now again, if we go to the street level and we start looking around and poking our nose into different real estate markets, we get a sense that prices are actually coming down. The bubble is popping. We see it in San Francisco. We see it in the luxury market in New York. We're starting to see it in the outskirts around all the different areas in the Northeast, the South, the Midwest, the West. And there's just small pockets right now where we're seeing prices continually being pushed up. And when we continually look at this, we're starting to realize that none of this is really making any sense at all. Because what's happening is they're trying to keep this illusion alive that everything is fine, that the economy is doing well. Remember, the American people have been sitting on the sidelines while the central bank has been pumping up the bubbles in the market, in the bond market, in the auto loan market, in the housing market. And they're continually doing this. Meanwhile, as they pump up the bubbles, they're manipulating the data to fit everything. And what happens is, as time goes on, these things start to separate. Reality sets in, and things start not to make sense. And this is exactly what's happening right now. The corporate media, on the other hand, will be out there, and any little pop, they're going to make it seem like everything is rebounding and everything is fine. But when you step back and you look at the overall picture, you see there's a downward trend. For instance, market is out there, and that's M-A-R-K-I-T, not the market. This is markets U.S. manufacturing PMI. For June, it has beat expectations, and they're saying it rose from 50.7 to 51.4. But when we step back and we take a look at this, well, things don't look good. Now, of course, the corporate media is out there saying, this is incredible. But when we look and we go back in time, we see a completely different picture. Because when we go back to 2014, we see manufacturing was around 60. And then it dropped down to about 55 in the middle of 2014. And then we had a surge back up to about 57. And they said, oh, the economy is rebounding, manufacturing's back on track. And then all of a sudden, it dropped right back down to 55. And then it started to decline, I should say, to 52.5, down to 50. And we've had this little pop-up once again. And when we look at this trend, we see that it's going to continually trend downward. And that's where we're headed. And this is not a good sign. Actually, the 3 months to June has seen the worst quarter for manufacturing in terms of both production and employment growth since 2009. So this situation that they continually tell us about, and they continually put out that everything is rebounding, no, it's not. We're seeing little pop-ups on the way down. That's not a situation where we're improving. It's a situation where things are actually getting worse. Now, the EU is completely off their rocker, because the EU is now studying a proposal that would count robots as people for tax purposes, which is absolutely ridiculous. And you can see, once they start heading down this path, that means they're in big trouble. That means they need more revenue, and they're trying to figure out any way they possibly can to bring revenue into their system. They're saying Europe's robots to become electronic persons under a draft plan. They're saying their newly created army of robots who are working now, they should be classified as electronic persons, and their owners liable to paying Social Security for them if the European Union adopts a draft plan to address the realities of the new industrial revolution. This is absolutely ridiculous. But they need revenue. And you can see they're going to do whatever they possibly can to bring revenue in to keep their system operational. Because as we look around today, we can see the debt level is so great that they're looking to do whatever they possibly can to keep this system alive any way they know how. And we know they will go to any lengths to do this. Now we see we are on the eve of the BREXIT, and we know that the central bank, the powers that be, do you really think they're going to let the people decide anything? I mean, really think about it. When has governments or the central banks, when have they ever let the people decide on anything? But let's go with what's happening. We see that the polling stations, they'll close at 2100 Greenwich Mean Time. And we see that voters will be counted by hand starting as soon as polls are closed. Each of the 382 local counting areas will tally the number of ballots and announce local turnout figures. Now, of course, this is all being counted by hand. We're getting reports that some of the people are being issued pencils to fill out the ballot. Well, that can be erased. And we can see right now that each one of the counting areas, well, they're based along the lines of local government authorities. And they vary widely in population. The biggest counting areas are Birmingham, Leeds, Northern Ireland. Birmingham has around 700,000 eligible voters, while the City of London counting area, comprising the central financial district of the capital, has around 7,000 eligible voters. The smallest counting area is the Isle of Sicily, which has about 1,700 voters. Now, very interestingly, there's going to be no exit poll whatsoever. Now, exit polls are actually good because it keeps an eye on the manipulation factor. Because as people leave the voting polls, they're asked, how did they vote? Of course, why would they lie at this point? There's no reason to do this. And they can take those exit polls and they can match them up with the results that the official government bodies are telling us the results are. And we see right now that there are going to be no exit polls whatsoever. And this is kind of a sign of manipulation, because when Scotland was having their vote, there were no exit polls there either. Now, the voters are going to be given a piece of paper with a question. Should the United Kingdom remain a member of the European Union or leave the European Union? They'll be asked to put a cross beside either of these questions. Now, the vote, once it's done, it cannot be challenged. This is going to be very unlikely that this will happen. The Electoral Commission says the rules do not provide for a national recount under any circumstances. So we're going to have to sit back and watch this. But my take on this entire thing is that the central bankers, the government body, they are not going to let the people decide. Now, if the people decide that they want to exit, let's think about this for a second. They let the people decide to exit the EU. Now remember, the EU is made up of a non-elected system. The people have no say in what they do. And the central bankers, the government, they're just going to let the people say, yeah, we want to be out of here. This would have an effect where other countries will decide, you know what, let's do the same exact thing. The only reason I would say they would allow this at this point, where the people say, yes, let's leave, well, I think they would use it to say, because the people decided to do this, they crashed the economies. They crashed Europe, which bled into the United States, and they brought the economy down. Because remember, the central banking system, they know that they can't keep the system going for much longer. And if they do allow this, they will use it to benefit themselves. They will use it to blame it on the people for this entire system collapsing. But we're going to have to wait to see how this entire thing turns out. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.